Good afternoon. Hi, Leah and others, everyone who's joining us, those I've met and those we have not yet met. I'm Gabriella Berman. I am the Director of Communications at Beyond Basics. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. In May, we held a literacy summit during which we featured a panel discussion on the crisis of literacy and solutions. Today, we are going to take a closer look at our Beyond Basics program and our curriculum. We're going to share the keys to a successful intervention that, in our experience, makes a real difference in the lives of the students we serve. Helping students advance meaningfully in reading builds their skills, their knowledge, their confidence, and ultimately gives them the agency to write the stories of their own lives. In the essence of time, we'll focus today on the academic portion of Beyond Basics, but I would be remiss if I did not mention that we also offer an incredibly robust enrichment program. If you were here this week, you would see our trained tutors assembling art supplies and other materials that will translate into fine arts activities that will paper the classrooms that are bright and inviting in which we operate. And these fine arts activities help to build bridges between our students and our tutors, and also build bridges to the outside world. So I definitely wanted to touch upon that today, but we will be focusing on the academic side of things today. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded so that others can watch later. We welcome your questions and your comments. Please put them in the chat. And towards the end of the hour, we will try to get to as many of them as we can. If we don't respond online, we will certainly do our best to do so offline. And you can always reach out to us at communications@beyondbasics.org. All right, so now that we've dispensed with our housekeeping items, I want to take a minute to introduce you to Laria Jester. She is the Director of the Office of Literacy, and she oversees managing and implementing the delivery of our structured literacy interventions to bring greetings and say a couple of words. Hi, Laria.
Hi, Gabby, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So as we all know, illiteracy is a crisis that plagues society on a national level. When students show up in school, they deserve the opportunity to access the curriculum presented to them. But currently, and unfortunately, many are unable to do so because of their gaps in literacy. However, we know that this is a solvable problem. We know that higher rates of literacy lead to better outcomes in health, education, and employment. Our curriculum, which is embedded in the school day, guided by dedicated, trained professional staff, is designed to meet a child's literacy needs. Today, you'll be hearing from Beyond Basics team members who are dedicated to this mission of eradicating illiteracy. For 20 years, we've been partnering with schools to work with students in the building 5 days a week. Our curriculum is designed to meet individual needs, and as you'll learn today, it's guided by dedicated adults who care for the whole child. We strongly emphasize the tutor-student relationship. It's the foundation of our work, embedded in our daily work, and it's the engine that really makes the train run. So today, we hope that you walk away from this conversation with a deeper understanding of our approach and with knowledge that can help you either advocate for and evaluate intensive intervention programs for your schools and for your students. So again, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Laria. Well put. So now we'll get into the process. And while everyone on this call values an excellent curriculum and well-trained staff, there's critical work that has to be done before a tutor and a student ever meet. And this is where the diagnostic assessment comes in. It's the essential precursor to the tutoring process. So our first conversations today will begin with the diagnostic assessment. It ensures that we will deliver the highest standard of quality to our students as we meet their individual needs. And it's really the essential precursor to all that we do. So to talk about the diagnostic assessment, I want to introduce Carolyn Wise. She is a certified tester. She's a veteran classroom teacher, and she's been working with us at Beyond Basics since 2015. Welcome, Carolyn. If you want to unmute yourself. Wonderful. Hi.
Good afternoon, all. Yes.
Carolyn, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your background as a teacher?
Throughout my many years of working with students from first grade through eighth grade, I have been a self-contained classroom teacher, a literacy coach, an instructional specialist, and I even team taught for a few years. I've had experience administering diagnostic assessments. Some of you may remember DIBELS, summative assessments, those interim assessments, shall I say chapter tests, and of course, formative assessments.
A lot of experience. With all of your years of experience, how do you get started as a certified tester administering our diagnostic assessment? What's your initial meeting like with a student?
This is such a critical part. When the program manager introduces me to a student, first of all, I smile and initiate what I call meet and greet. Meet and greet is the positive rapport I work hard to establish with each student. Of course, once I meet a student, I can craft what I'm going to say for that individual young girl or young sir. For example, I might say to a ninth grade student this September, "So nice to meet you, Carl. How was your summer vacation?" I'll give the student time to respond, and then I'll continue with, "I'm Mrs. Wise. Today, you and I will be working on a few reading activities together. Beyond Basics wants you to become the best reader you can be, and our program helps with that. It's a win-win for everyone. Let's get started."
And what's the setting in which this assessment takes place?
Our setting is administered to students in a 45 to 60-minute class period in a Beyond Basics safe classroom environment. This assessment is administered on a one-to-one individualized basis, and testers encourage each student to think, work hard, and do their very best.
And at Beyond Basics, we use the Woodcock Johnson Mastery Test, 3rd edition. Can you tell us about the test and what it measures?
Yes, this is a comprehensive tool that allows for, I'll say targeted analysis and remediation for our students. This assessment measures the 5 reading areas of phonics, phonemic awareness, reading fluency, vocabulary, and text comprehension. This assessment measures reading readiness and reading achievement. It also analyzes our students' strengths and weaknesses across the WRMT3, so areas of remediation can be decided.
Okay. And what do you do with the test after you've administered it?
After the students complete the test, testers thank the students for the pleasure of working with them. We encourage students to continue practicing their reading and to have a pleasant day. Keeping in mind, we work from first grade to 11th grade students. Then we check our tests. Scored tests are then submitted to our data department for entry into our data system. That's basically our testing cycle.
And this process will repeat at the outset of tutoring as well.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Carolyn. Assessments are serious business, aren't they? So as you mentioned, though, besides the certified tester being involved in the diagnostic assessment, so too is our data team. I want to introduce Carrie Stiles. She is our data and systems director. Her team manages data gathering and governance and takes care of all of the technology needs for our entire staff. So welcome, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Carrie, so when a certified tester like Carolyn completes a student assessment and turns it over to data, what happens from the data point of view?
Yeah, so thank you. Once the assessment's administered, the physical test comes to the data team and it is scored on the assessment software platform. This provides the final scoring based on the responses that were provided in the test.
Okay, and how do you ensure accuracy?
We use a double-blind process for our scoring. So when the test comes in, it's handed to the first data analyst who inputs the test into the scoring platform. It then is handed off to a second analyst who enters the test into the same scoring platform. Then those two scores are compared by the platform and any discrepancies are highlighted. We have the opportunity to address those discrepancies, and through this double-blind process, we help to ensure the most accurate test results possible.
Right, in order to optimize success, a successful start for the student.
Absolutely.
Right. And who writes the individualized reading plan?
Yeah, so once we've done the scoring, then those results are provided back to the tester who administered the test. And they write the appropriate prescriptive curriculum for the student based on these results.
Great, great. And it's done with great sensitivity. I think not only crunching numbers, but looking at a whole child, right? Children are not stats. Yeah, thank you so much, Carrie. So
Absolutely.
our assessments lead to proper placement in one of our programs. We have an A program, a B program, and a C program. The programs are sequential and they are customizable. And we'll start at the beginning with a discussion of program A. And for that, I would like to introduce you all to one of our reading managers, Sheba Cherian. Sheba joined Beyond Basics 9 years ago. First, she worked as a tutor and then a lead tutor before assuming the reading manager position. And she's, of course, passionate about child literacy. Sheba, welcome.
Thank you, Gabriella. Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. So the Beyond Basics Program A, Reading Readiness, is a program designed to prepare students who are early or non-readers for the Beyond Basics Program B, Read to Rise, and to build their confidence in their ability to read and comprehend. The program is primarily for kindergarten to 5th grade students, but also includes 6th to 12th grade students who are early or non-readers. Reading Readiness focuses on developing foundational skills like letter recognition, phonemic and phonological awareness, sight word recognition, rhyming, oral reading fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. Now, these skills are developed using Florida Center of Reading Research best practices, sequential games and activities, the Tatum pre-boot camp and boot camp lessons and books, the Read Naturally articles, and a dedicated story time wherein the tutor reads to the student. So that's basically our program A.
It's quite a lot. What's the duration of the A program?
Yeah, the program runs for 20 sessions, so approximately 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yes.
4 weeks. And how do tutors and students typically engage during the A program?
They are introduced to their tutor, and I think they begin with like an art project and enrichment, which was mentioned by you earlier. And that they just build a rapport, just like Carolyn mentioned. That is very important. And we just tell them that we'll be doing some reading together. And a lot of times they're excited. The elementary students are very excited to do the games and activities and do some reading.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And will the tutor who's working with the student during program A typically continue on with the student as they spiral up into the B portion?
Yes, our tutors are all trained in all 3 programs. So they do, if you get a student who has a prescription with all 3 programs, the same tutor will remain with the student.
Thank you, Sheba. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker today to talk about specifically the B program, Steve Tatum. And we're lucky that he's here in Detroit this week, training some of our tutors as he has for many years now. Over the course of his 35-year career as an educator, Steve Tatum discovered that existing interventions to help struggling readers took at least 2 years to achieve substantial results. And he also observed that most phonics-based literacy programs did not have accompanying books for children to read as they went along. So it so suits him if you know him, but he's curious man and leaves no stone unturned. He began to adapt existing programs to produce results significantly quicker than their predecessors using a multisensory approach, including a magnetic tile board where students can manipulate colorful combinations of letters and sounds. He had found an interactive way for students to combine vowels and sounds to form words without traditional methods. And he also wrote a series of age-appropriate books to accompany each lesson. As the founder of the Tatum reading method, Steve teaches educators everywhere to use his expert approach to help students read. Beyond Basics has been using the Tatum method since 2008. Steve has trained hundreds of our tutors who guide our students to achieve grade level movement. As Steve says, he was destined to do this work, and we are so glad that destiny did call him to do that, and that we have him as one of our most trusted partners. So Steve, thank you for being
Glad to
with
be
us
here.
today. Thank
By
you.
the way, if somebody puts a question in chat, I'm good on my feet, so I have no problem if you throw questions at me as we go, okay?
Okay, all right. Well, I have a few.
Okay, great.
Okay. Let's start with the basics, Steve. What is reading?
Mhm.
What is reading?
Reading very simply is getting meaning from print. That's actually that simple. Now, there's two major components. There is the language or comprehension, and there's decoding, okay? So if you have high language and you can decode, you can become a reader. Now, there's a lot of kids with high language abilities, and their parents read to them a lot. And so they start processing language pretty quickly and remembering words. There's basically a sound, a language, and a word form area which memorizes words. And since they're read a lot, they read a lot of words, and any system will work for these kids. Maybe about 40% here in Michigan. It's a little lower than some areas in terms of the gifted kids. But then you have a group of kids that their comprehension's pretty good, but they can't unlock it through decoding. So if you read them a book at 5th grade level, they could answer all questions, but they can't unlock the code. Now the code is the sounds, but it's the sounds. And if you don't know that, they just can't unlock that language. So what my program is basically trying to do is get kids to get meaning from print by getting them to unlock that code.
And when you weave those strands together, you become becomes more automatic, right?
Right.
So who is your work especially suited for?
Well, pretty much any child. I initially started with the kids who have dyslexia. Dyslexia was officially diagnosed in 1896 by Morgan Pringle. And he found that some kids were born with an issue which they just could not see words and they couldn't remember words. So they had trouble with sounds. And so, when they couldn't say words correct, like volcano would be locano, et cetera. So they had trouble with the sound area. And as a result, they couldn't unlock that language. Okay. So those kids are hard to teach because you got to get the sound, the language, and the sight word going. And their sight word just didn't work, and they need to get the sound and the reading. So those kids, my program is designed to work with the toughest kids at that level. Now, then you have kids who just weren't taught phonics. Beyond Basics deals with a lot, but they pretty much, their sound system's okay, their language system's okay, and they can have sight words. Those kids make huge jumps in the program. And then you have kids whose all language processors are great who haven't been taught, and they will make big gains. So it's really designed for any child. It could be a beginning reading program in combination with, if you have high language kids, where you do reading of books like whole language, let them read real books while you do the phonics program. Could be done in a class, or it can be done with pull-out for any kid who's struggling with reading from really age 5 years to 65. Yeah, the 65-year-old woman we taught to read.
That's wonderful. Would you say that it's based on your varied experience working with such a variety of learners that's what spurred you to develop the Tatum reading method? Was there something lacking in?
Well, I was program director of Denver Academy, a school for kids with learning problems for 35 years. And I noticed that reading was the main problem. So I'd go to workshops in the summer all over the country. So I became an expert in a program called Orton Gillingham. I studied 4 or 5, but I was one that I was an expert in. I studied what's called the LIPS, the Linda Movable. I studied reading recovery. I studied whole language. I actually taught whole language in high school. So I know what reading is, okay? Now, a lot of individuals just take a phonics program and learn phonics, and they don't understand phonics is part of the program, but it's really, getting meaning from print is what it's all about. So I realize it's taken 2 years to get 2 years growth. And a lot of kids will be in a school and now the program will go for a year and they maybe get to breaking down 2-syllable words, but get a third through the program and the next year they won't have it. Or the next year the kid transfers, or the next year they do a different program. So what I wanted to do is get a program that in 3 months could get a kid out of special ed. And that's what we were finding happening in a lot of places. The kids would be sent to special ed. They do 3 months of my program and would be out and sent into a regular classroom.
Mhm.
So it was
What
a
makes
matter
it-
of finding a fast program. Go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Well, what makes your program then different from others in the marketplace?
Well, a lot of the phonics programs do a sound a day and they tie it down with linkages. And linkages are 8 different ways you tie the sound down. And I did that. And I did it for a couple months with a group of 3. And I got 3 kids thrown into the group and I had to catch them up. And I caught them up, by teaching all the sounds real quickly. And I found they were doing as well as the ones I did the linkages. Then I started to realize as I progressed, it took me 25 years, by the way, to develop the present program. I found that kids, I could just clean their sounds up. Most of the kids I ran into, and their primary problem is going ba, ka, da, fa. Cut off that sound, but I could basically clean up their consonants and vowels and move at a much quicker pace.
Mhm.
So I got it to where I cut it to about a year to get 2 years growth. And then I started working more processing, moving away from flashcards to more work with syllables. And that's where I did my movable alphabet. Let me
Mhm.
just show that to you real quick. So
Sure.
I developed this.
The multi-sensory board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I developed this multi-sensory board. Rather than doing flashcards, I'd review the problem sounds. And a lot of kids have problems with L, R, X, and Y. So we'd clean up the sounds and I go rrr, and child go rrr, and I'd go ks, and they go ks, yeah, they go yeah, oh. A lot of kids have trouble with but and duh. I teach them the bed, but look at the bed, and the bush should look like the beginning of the bed. And then I have what's called the vowel galaxy, a big dipper, the short vowels and diphthongs, crescent moon, the R family, and the earth, green grass on top, yellow and red iron ore. My kids, as they're through this program, can recite that pretty accurately, and some can recite it with their eyes closed. In other words, they've incorporated. I found out that rather than teaching a vowel a day and have a vowel book, that I could teach all these vowels together with the consonants pretty quickly and put them in a book. And then I could teach the R family as a group rather than one R family a day and get them in a book. And I could teach the diphthongs together as a group. So I wrote 12 reading series, a couple for first, second grade, couple for third, fourth, a couple for like 5th through 7th, 8th, couple for high school and adult. But they all started with consonants and short vowel. So the child wasn't insulted. The stories are more in line with what they're doing. So the reason I did this was I wanted to move from a program that took 2 years to get 2 years growth to a program that was concise and doesn't depend on the tutor next year who may not know the program. Okay. So
Mhm.
that's what motivated.
Gotcha. And you've mentioned a couple of times the importance of having these accompanying books
Right.
while teaching the concepts that are part of your method. Why is that so important?
Okay. The reason they're important here's an example of a series for 3rd, 4th graders. Girls especially like this series. And it begins with Enchanted Rock. All my series begin like this. And I want you to note that Enchanted Rock is actually modeled after Chronicles of Narnia, but rather than having a closet where you go in a magical world, there's a funnel that brings you up to this world run by animals. And we start with closed syllable words. The child will go van, and I'll go and they'll go little is, Liz, sit, and we'll read these suffixes and phrases. And then we do what's called pressure release, where the child will read, and when they make an error, we point above it and they sound it out. When they make a second error, we point above it. And then we take over and they read with us, okay? So we go through the books. Now, this would be in a starting book for a fourth grade kid that's at the one syllable stage. Now, if this is too difficult, we drop down to an earlier series, okay? Now, I just want to show you where this goes. So later on, maybe 40, 50 hours later, they're in this book, Shadow of the Cloud World.
Okay.
Oh, just 1 second. And just to notice the words are a little more difficult. So the books progress in grade level and in the difficulty of words, etc. So the books are real important. Dr. Shaywitz, who's written Overcoming Dyslexia, has now in her newest book said the importance of having books right away. So
You made an analogy. It's about teaching someone to swim on dry land.
yeah, it's like teaching a kid cup his head, cup his hands, flip your feet, etc. on dry land. Put him in the water, he drowns. You got to get the kid in the water and get them to move. I mean, I taught my kids to swim, so I hold them and they will do this for a bit and then they start kicking. But you got to get them into the milieu to learn how to swim. The same thing with books. You just got to throw the kid in. I feel so much how important it is that I've written a book with 4 consonants and 1 vowel.
Okay.
It's called War and Peace, Tolstoy copy. No, it's called The Cab, and it's basically 4 consonants and 1 vowel. And so I get any kid. There's not a kid yet I've worked with I can't get reading day 1.
Okay, that leads me to my next question. Thank you for sharing your screen with us. If you'd like
Sure.
to stop now, talk to us a little bit about the outcomes you see.
Okay. Outcomes, let's go back to high language, high comprehension, low decoding. Okay, the outcomes depend really on this. So if I have a 5th grader with 7th grade comprehension, I can make 3-4 years growth because what happens is as they learn how to sound out, they start using context with sounding out. See, sounding out is an approximation. It's not perfect. So a good reader will use word attack and sound out word with the approximation. And so what happens is as they sound out gets quicker, their language starts clicking in. And so they start reading quicker, and they may get, 3, 4, 5 grade levels growth. But if you have a kid with lower language, let's say the child's 3rd grade with 2nd grade language, we can get a year or 2 years growth in a short period of time. Then we hit the ceiling of language, and now it's slow go. Because as we're getting words, you're sounding them out and doing definitions. And for words that come up, we'll role play the verbs. Okay, run, that means it's jump, those that don't know the word. One was dangle today, so we dangled a pen and said dangled. And then we'll go to pictures to show the nouns, some of the nouns. But we have to do the vocab, and that's slower go. So that little lower language, less growth. Then you have kids that's language and decoding are both low, and that's slower go. Most of the kids with dyslexia that I have high language. We don't even have to do comprehension. We just have to catch up to that high language. Outcomes will vary based on language and their processing. How well can they sound and connect the language, and are they firing the word form area? Can kids with dyslexia will sound out words and know it. When they see that word again, they'll sound it out and know it. And they'll see it again, they'll sound it out again. Fact, and they say it. When this fires for them, suddenly they become readers because they can start remembering sight words, which means a program totally sight word is useless to these kids, absolutely useless. And I've had a program near me, does sight words and a couple hundred hours. And when they come to me, they start my beginning books.
Thank you. Thank you. So interesting. We could listen to you for much longer. I do have one more question for you. If there's one thing a school district could do to improve outcomes, what would you suggest? And what should educators be looking for as they try to evaluate and implement interventions for students?
Well, it's real easy to find the problem, kids. Just give them the book that you're going to read with the class. Most people are doing books from companies, and they'll have short stories, etc. Give them and have them read with a partner, move around the room. You're going to notice some kids read real smoothly. You'll see some that need more fluency, and then you'll see kids who can't read, Tom, Bill, Bob, and some that are struggling. Just jot them down. You'll know real quickly. Often teachers' recommendation is the number one thing that predicts kids' problems, especially in kindergarten. Okay. There is a test called TOSCRF, TOSCRF, which I have nothing to do with. It's pro ed. But for a large class of like 30, what it does is it has kids for 3 minutes, all these letters are joined together and they have to find the word. So they got to go the, cab, went, and they just draw a line. Now, gifted kids see the patterns and they're off and running. The kids who struggle a bit will be slower. Kids who can't read can't do any of it. They'll only do a couple because they can't see the word. They don't even know what the words are, can join it. So with that test, in combination with listening kids read, you'll know your problem kids. So those are a couple of suggestions.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Thank you. Your passion is contagious.
Yeah.
I will also just end by saying that we love to have you in the office here in Southfield, Michigan. When you're tutoring, when you're training our tutors, you have excellent taste in music, and your playlist
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
always fun for everyone to listen to. We have a couple of more presenters to get to, so we'll move on now to the C program, also known as our Scholars Program. And to give an overview of that program, I'd like to introduce you to Chris Schaefer. He is a reading manager here at Beyond Basics, who previously worked as a tutor. He has a BA in English and an MFA in creative writing. So naturally, he loves to do both read and write. So Chris, welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely.
Can you give us a
having me.
description? Can you give us a description, please, of the C program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the C program is kind of our most advanced program, I guess. It's the highest level, and it's intended to kind of build four key skills. I almost said three skills. 4 key skills, which I see as very 3 of which I see as very closely interlocking, and those skills are fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And then writing kind of outside of that, and they kind of exist in two separate buckets in terms of how we approach the teaching of the Scholars Program. And so for that kind of fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, big 3, we have a couple key resources we're going to use. One are Read Naturally stories, and those are kind of they're these sheets that we give out front and back, nonfiction. There's on a variety of topics, such as, there's some science, some animal stuff, history, art history. There's one about MC Escher that I particularly enjoy working with the kids to give that kind of like enrichment aspect, And also Read Works, which is kind of like that, but the pieces are longer, the vocabulary is a little more advanced, and they're intended for kind of a higher level student. And then kind of separate from that, we have, but in the same program, there's an essay writing / paragraph writing component. And we also use the website English for Everyone for their synonyms, antonyms, and analogy worksheets, which are intended for more that kind of vocabulary, fluency, comprehension side of things.
That's interesting. So, in what is perceived primarily as a reading program, why is writing so important? You mentioned writing as part of the C program.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we see writing as kind of sort of, I guess, helping the students kind of, I guess, develop as far as their professional lives go, but also develop personally, in terms of their professional lives. You have to be able to write a resume, you have to be able to write, emails in a workplace setting, et cetera, but also, communication. Everyone wants a chance to kind of tell their own story, and everyone wants a chance to kind of let where they're coming from. And our writing component is very heavily geared around kind of, giving the student a space to communicate their own sort of personal experience in a way that also kind of hones these writing skills
Mhm,
that again helps them professionally and helps them academically as well.
mhm, mhm. And what, is this also in person? And
Yes, this would be in the classroom. Yeah, the same tutors who would teach you the read to rise and the reading readiness, the A and the B as it were, will be teaching you the Scholar C as well.
right. And how long is the C program typically?
20 sessions. So assuming an attendance rate of 3 to 5 sessions per week, 4 to 6 weeks, 20
Mhm.
sessions.
Great, great. And the younger students, do they do essay writing as well?
They do not. They will do paragraph writing. Along with the curriculum development team, Sheba and I worked extensively on generating a list of kind of fun prompts for the younger students to more
Mhm.
respond to it. Stuff like, what's your idea of, what's your favorite vacation, or who's your favorite family member, and just kind of lighter things that are more intended to engage them and get them comfortable with the writing process.
Right, right. And develop them into future authors. You never know where it may take them. That's wonderful.
That's the hope.
Right.
Yes,
Well, it helps them express themselves, as you mentioned when we were preparing, having that voice out in the
Absolutely.
world. Right. It's very important.
Yeah, I think that, humans have kind of an innate need to express themselves creatively and to also just communicate, I mean, we feel things, and we write those things down, right? And it's satisfying,
Right,
I guess.
right. Absolutely. Right. Thank you, Chris. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So upon completion of their prescription or their individualized reading plan, each of our students is again assessed by a certified tester. That's not the only data collected at Beyond Basics. I'd like to welcome Carrie back to the conversation, our data and systems director, to talk about monitoring progress while the students participate in our program. Hi, Carrie. You're still with us. Wonderful. Thank you. So in school, assignments and grades are typically the way educators keep track of their classroom students. How does Beyond Basics accomplish this?
So we are collecting data on the students, through daily narratives and also through some specific data points. This information gets compiled and reviewed to help fine tune the curriculum for each student as they progress through the program, through the ABC. So for example, through this progress monitoring, if we notice that a student's hot read scores aren't hitting the mark where we would expect them to be, we can go in and adjust the prescription and the curriculum to help address this issue and to help fine tune that curriculum for that specific student.
Okay, so in that way, data really can help shape and optimize the student experience. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The data that we collect around each student not only helps identify where they should start in the program, but it also helps us to understand this connection between the tutor and the student. That one-to-one relationship allows us to have a really extensive daily logging of the students' activities, which feeds into this daily progress monitoring and feeds into their overall experience in the program.
How else is data used?
So we're able to also gauge the effectiveness of the tutor and be able to tweak their training as needed. I've already talked about adjusting to the curriculum, and also it's providing valuable daily insights into the students' day-to-day activities. We are collecting this data so that we can optimize the students' chance for success. When they succeed in this program, they're going to be able to succeed in life. This data is not just some number crunching and we're just gathering it just to have it, because children are not statistics. And so when we're gathering this data, we're reviewing it, we're also gathering this daily narrative and understanding what is happening with each child within the program and also within their daily lives.
Right, right. Thank you. And in my role, I especially appreciate hearing all the wonderful anecdotal evidence that comes our way from the children themselves and their tutors and the program managers who oversee our teams that are deployed in each location. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Absolutely.
So we've given you a lot of information, and we are now going to, welcome your questions or your comments. And I see one is coming in already. What is the most difficult part of getting students to be successful in the program? Loria, would you like to field that one? I can repeat the question. What is the most difficult part of getting students to be successful?
I think that one of the challenges is student buy-in. So oftentimes students don't recognize that they have some gaps, or they do know and they may be embarrassed, or they may have participated in other programs that weren't successful, and so they've kind of checked out. So just being, and that's where that relationship piece that I spoke of in the welcome really comes into play, because once you're able to build that relationship, which even starts at testing, as Ms. Carolyn stated, how she tries to build that relationship before she even gets into the assessment piece. It's key to letting the student know that they have someone sitting in front of them daily, whether it's the tester, the program manager, or the tutor. They have someone sitting in front of them that genuinely cares about their success and genuinely has an investment in helping them get to that next level in their literacy journey.
Mm-hmm. We have a question here about our success. And our students on average make grade level movement in about 6 weeks. Our Read to Rise program, that B program we spoke about, is usually about 30 sessions. So that's 6 weeks if students are coming daily. So I hope that answers your question, Eugene. Thank you. Thank you. And if other practitioners in the field of literacy have any, stories that they want to share, instead of asking a question, you can put that in the chat too, and we'd be happy to unmute you and hear from other warriors in the fight to eradicate illiteracy. So please feel free to share your own story, or if you had a struggle with literacy that you overcame. Welcome to share that as well. Here's another question. How do we partner with schools to implement our programs? Great question. Loria, I'll leave that to you to answer as well.
So there are a couple of ways we leverage partnerships with schools. We do have an entire development department that works to secure funding for specific projects. We also have advocates of our work that raise funds independently to allocate those funds to specific projects. But I think mainly it's the development team that seeks to help build those relationships and see how we can take those or take our program into the various schools, whether it's school districts or just individual schools.
Right. And then just to piggyback off of that, once we have partnered with a school, the schools work with us very closely to identify the students who would benefit from Beyond Basics. Loria, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so we do work with, once the partnership is established, we work with the school administration or the district, depending on the layers of the partnership. We work with them to identify the students who would be most successful in the program by analyzing the test data they may have on hand, using that prior data to give an idea of who would be most successful, because one of the other key pieces is that the student has to attend regularly. I think Chris mentioned that 3 to 5 day per week present rate. And that is a key piece of the success, is that the student has to attend regularly. And we know that attendance across the board is a barrier that affects many of our students. So even when we're selecting students to participate, the school is able to provide us data on students' attendance. And along with their prior test scores, that's what's used to pre-select students who may be participants in the program.
Thank you, Loria. We have a couple more questions here. Right. That's good. It's true. There are a lot of good people trying to solve the problem, and a lot of methods are tested. But Willie Mae has a question. What do we believe is the missing piece? Why are we not seeing the progress that that needs to be seen? And I know the answer is the diagnostic assessment, that much like an X-ray will diagnose what's beneath the surface physically, the diagnostic assessment will do so with the components of literacy, so that you can then implement the individualized work that we do. Loria, do you want to talk a little bit more about what you think maybe the missing piece is, or Steve? You can unmute yourselves if you'd like to contribute.
Sure. After Loria.
So in thinking about missing pieces, I often think about other barriers, as I was speaking of in the last response, thinking of other barriers that affect students' ability to be able to attend. With our younger students, and even with some of our older students, there are external factors outside of attending school every day that may be going on in their home life and environment. Those are additional barriers that we have to overcome when we're trying to, even before getting the student to show up fully, to be present when they're sitting in front of you. There's so many barriers and issues that the students are encountering, daily, that we need additional resources to be able to, help them, overcome those various barriers. So that's one area that comes to mind when we talk about missing pieces, is just those other wraparound services that are needed in addition to the one that we offer in helping to close the literacy gap. Steve?
Yeah, we see multiple issues in San Francisco. One is literacy is not in the kids' picture of a quality world. Basketball is, and iPhones and girls and boys and social, but reading is not in their picture quality world. And that's years ago, every kid would feel like, I need to read, and that's just not the case. Some kids just don't care. That's problem one. So you got to get them to care. Problem two is the district's not really agreeing on what program they use. So there's a lot of variations. There's no consistency. There's also no consistency from year to year. So if you have a pretty severe child who's in a program, next year they'll be in a different program that doesn't even do phonics. So there's the inconsistency of programs that we're seeing. Then we're also seeing kids from poverty homes who don't have access to certain things you need, like if you're Zooming, you need some access to a computer or that kind of thing. I think Loria put her finger on the main issue, is you have to get relationship with the kids to get them in. And we've tried to get the older kids, we try to hook them in by starting with the backside of the board, which deals with prefixes, roots, and suffixes, and get them to read nonsense words like uninterruptible, interruptible. Got to make the kid feel important, because what Loria said, getting the relationship in combination with the kid seeing him making progress is what produces change. And remember, a lot of programs take 2 years to get 2 years growth, and they're doing a consonant a day, whereas we will often clean up all the consonants and vowels get them in a book meaningful at their level, and they see improvement. So a lot of programs just don't show improvement, and they don't have the consistency.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. It's true. That's change needs to happen. It needs to happen quickly. Let's look at a couple of more questions, and thank you to our participants for your active engagement today. Okay, this is a great question from Bree. What if we know interested teachers from schools in Detroit? Is there an avenue for them to take to get the program into their school? Thank you. And I would extrapolate from Detroit and beyond. Yes, the answer is yes. Loria, what should a teacher do if they want to bring Beyond Basics to their school?
I think that if a teacher is interested in getting Beyond Basics in their school, they should reach out to their reading interventionist or their school administration so that that individual could reach out to Beyond Basics through our development team or even communications. I know communications has play a role in fostering or facilitating partnerships. So it's really just getting the school staff, the specific school staff member to connect with someone at Beyond Basics on the development side to start building that relationship.
Yeah, we'll be happy to connect the dots. And arrange a time to meet, to Zoom, and to make those introductions and to start building those relations. Looking through some of the other. Eugene, your question about successful children repeating a few years later because for whatever reason they fall behind. I think you're asking, do we have sometimes students who return to us later on in their school years? I know of a few. Loria, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, we have had students repeat the program based. So as Ms. Carolyn stated earlier, we give a pre-test and we give a post-test. So based on the post-test scores, it will tell us if the student needs additional programming. You know, maybe they grew in some subset areas, but they still need support in building their vocabulary and comprehension. And that's where that program that Chris Schaefer was speaking of focuses on. So we could spend additional sessions and weeks with those students based on what the post-test data shared.
Thank you. Oh, this is a great question from Marie. In your opinion, what are the most important characteristics of a tutor for the reading program and your training? Who wants to talk about the characteristics of a tutor? Chris, go ahead. Lots of people raising their hand. We'll give our reading managers a chance to respond. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna fire off a couple just so anyone else who wants to speak can speak as well. I would say number one is flexibility. Number two is kind of also flexibility. Patience, patience, knowledgeability, and just being able to communicate and relate with the student and being able to kind of meet the student where they're at.
All true. Sheba, do you have anything as a longtime tutor?
Sure.
Yes.
You know, it's funny. This is going to sound terrible
Oh,
to you guys.
yeah.
Our best tutors are often college kids, and what the characteristics they have is enthusiasm. They want to make a difference. They're used to studying, so they study, you know, many of them are really good with the kids. Okay, of course we have great older tutors, etc. But it's pretty amazing. So much so that at my school I'm working at, I'm this year going to try to work with 3 or 4 high school seniors, get them to tutor, and then I'll observe and work with them. So it's the characteristics I see as enthusiasm, you know, the idea of willing to put in the study, you know, willing to put time and the desire to make a change.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Shiba, you had something you wanted to add.
Yes, I think a tutor has to be very intuitive. If they can figure out what the student needs, of course, they have a prescription, but to modulate their teaching style to reach the student where they are at is very key. So you just don't like check the boxes, you know, when you're following the curriculum. I mean, it's very good to follow the curriculum, but again, you have to know what your individual student needs, and you have to be keyed into that. For that, you have to be very, and also positivity, always believe that the student will do well and that you can make a change. Believe in yourself, believe in the potential of the child. That's huge, and that transfers right away to the student, and they see that and they believe in themselves and they make the effort. So those are good characteristics of tutors that we should, you know, zone in.
Thank you, Shiba. Thank you to all of you. Thank you. Bree has asked a question about bringing the program to students in the juvenile justice system. That is definitely an area where we are having conversations. It's an area that we would like very much to expand into. The rates of those involved in the criminal justice system, the intersection between that and low levels of literacy are well now known and easy to Google, and they're definitely, if we can eradicate illiteracy, we will have fewer people interfacing with the justice system, and we can flip the narrative for so many students in our communities, especially in our vulnerable communities. I think we can maybe get one more question. And again, if we have not answered your question online, please know that we will do our best to respond to you offline. And please send me an email at communications@beyondbasics.org if you want to follow up on anything. Have we found presentations to be helpful in increasing the value of literacy and encouraging decision-making at the district level? It's a great question. Every presentation we make, every interaction we have, helps to move the needle. And sometimes it takes time and change is slow, especially systemic change. But that's where all of us come in with unity and single-minded focus. We can really start to achieve our goals. And if you follow the news on literacy, Time Magazine this week, actually it's a week ago, last Friday, published a very comprehensive article on what communities across the country are doing to help students master reading. I encourage all of you to read that. If you haven't yet, we can put it in the chat. So we need to just keep going and keep drawing more advocates near, and then take the message out into the world, and we will achieve this great goal of ours to bring literacy to everyone, and help children unlock the power, the miracle of reading, connect to the possibilities that are before them, to the opportunities that they so deserve, that we want for everyone. It's 1 o'clock, so we'll be respectful that you have other activities to go on to. I want to thank all of our presenters and our participants for taking time out of your day to being with us. Your passion for literacy will make change. We will affect change together for the sake of our country's future. We each have a role to play. We appreciate you being here with us. We thank you for your interest and your advocacy. And if you'd like to learn more about Beyond Basics and ways to get involved, we would love to continue speaking with you. Please visit our website, beyondbasics.org, follow us on social media, and please again, email us at any time. And I want to thank you once again and wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.